Welcome to an RPG in a Box Basics video tutorial. In this video, we're going to take a look at how to create walls and doorways in RPG in a Box for grid mode games that use the navigation lines. Okay? And the reason I'm doing this video is because there's some important things to know about walls and doorways when it comes to grid mode. Okay? So here we have a map, and you can see the navigation lines that dictate where the player can and can't go, these green lines here. Now, let's say we've got a set of walls where if we, let's say, delete this set of tiles here, and let's place some floor down. Okay, so we've got a set of walls there. Let's also delete this tile here. And let's put that in there like that. Okay, so we might think that this is good. You know, we've got a set of walls and a doorway. There's just one problem. The navigation lines have gone over the top of the wall, as opposed to what it should have done, which is, first of all, there shouldn't be any navigation lines on this wall because it should block any movement at all. And also, when we go through this arch, we should go through the arch, not over the arch. So if we go into game and see what this actually does as a result. So here we are in game. So if I just quickly move around to the other side so you can see a bit better. So if I move towards this wall, it should stop me because it's a wall, okay? But if I move forward, I go up and over it. Why? Because the navigation lines have told the game, or told the player, that you can go up and over the wall. So that's what it does. It goes up and over the wall. Likewise, when we get to this archway, which we should go through and under, we don't, we go up and over. Okay? So these lines you need to pay attention to, because these lines will tell the game and the player and the NPCs the route that they not only can take, i.e. can you go that way, but how they will take the route as well. In this case, up and over. Okay? Now, why is this happening? It's happening because what I've actually done is I've put my wall and my floor into the same tile. So here I've got a tile that's both the floor and the wall. Okay. Now that's creating a conflict because the floor is trying to have navigation on it that tells you where you can walk, i.e. on the floor, but it's also taking into account this wall. So it's seeing the height as well. It's taking the height of this tile into effect as well, because this is a physical object, right? So when you place it in the map editor, it's going to go to the highest physical point. So that's why the lines go up to the top of the wall, because when it reaches a solid object, it's going to always go to the top. So what we actually want to do is delete these. And the easiest thing to do is to keep your walls and your floors as separate models. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to replace the grass down. That will put the green lines back. Okay. So again, I can move back and forth now through this open space. But if I now click the stone wall tile, and if I just double click it for a moment and open it in the voxel editor, you want to make sure that in the case of a wall like this, that passable is off. Now watch what happens when I place the wall down. First of all, when I place the wall, you'll notice that the floor disappears. Now, a lot of people who start out with RPG in a Box, this might be the reason why you've even created a floor in the first place, because you've realized, well, actually, I need the floor as well. But actually, that's just the fact that you need to know how to place things on top of one another. Okay? So in order to place tiles on top of other tiles, you need to use this control system here in the top left. These set of buttons and this number here denotes the height placement on the grid. Okay, so at the moment these floor tiles are all at a grid of 0. Now you'll notice this yellow box around the wall. Notice how I move this wall around, the box around it is yellow. But if I move it out of the map, it goes white. See how the box has gone white and then yellow. White, yellow, white, yellow. The yellow basically means that it's going to replace something, whereas the white means it's an empty tile or an empty space. So what you're about to place is just going to be added. but yellow means it's going to replace something. In this case, placing this wall, because it's yellow, it's going to replace the floor, which it does, okay? Now, we don't want to replace the floor. We want this box to be white so that we can add the wall and not lose the floor. So what we can do instead is click this up arrow to go up to level 1. Now notice how the box is white, because it means that we're on a different height layer now. So when we click, it's just going to add that wall on top of the floor. It's literally adding it on top of the floor tile. Okay. Now notice what it did automatically. Let me just put it back. When I did that, not only did it not delete the floor tile, but what it did remove, let's go up to 1 again. What it did remove was the navigation. Notice how the lines have gone. And that's because it knows that this wall is an impassable object. So it's automatically deleting the lines. So now as a player, we're not going to be able to move to this wall. Okay, so let's just put this back for a second. We'll come back to placing walls again in a moment. But let's just quickly talk about this navigation grid. Okay, when you place tiles down, you can either go up in small increments and down in small increments with the single arrow, or at the very top, we've got an arrow with a line above it that goes in increments of your grid. So just so you know where that number is coming from, this map, when we made it, so let's go to, let's save the map for a moment, close it, and let's just create a new one. When you create a map, you set the tile size, right? So in this case, it's 16 by 16, but you could set it to 9 by 9, or you could set it to 24 by 24. Okay, whatever you set the map to, so let's say we create one that's 9 by 9, or let's do 6 by 6, let's say, okay, and we'll just call this, because it's just an example, okay? So here we create this map that's 6 by 6. Every time I press this, it's going up in sixes. So 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, and down in sixes. So 30, 24, 18, 12, 6, 0, okay? In our map, the one we're building, it's a 16 by 16 grid. So whenever we go up, it's going up in 16s. So 16, 32, 48. So that's how you jump an entire tile, basically, in height, okay? But if you just want to place a wall down, for example, then you go up 1 level above the floor and place, okay? If you want to rotate, you right-click, okay? So let's say we place a few walls down. So let's click there, click there, click there, and click there, okay? And then let's also place our stone arch down. Again, this has no floor tile. It's going to go on the grid height above the floor tile. So this is going to remain, it's going to keep this floor tile in place, but add the arch on top, okay? Now you'll notice that it does delete the line. That's because if we go into the properties of the stone wall arch, the passable option is off. So if we undo that for a second, go back to the map editor and put that wall back for a second. I undid a bit too much. Let's just quickly add the navigation back as it was, okay? We can go into our stone arch and we can make this passable, okay? And when we click OK, go back to the map. And now when we place this, it doesn't delete the navigation line. However, we have the similar issue we had before, which is the line is going over the top of the arch. Why is it doing that? Because again, the highest point of this tile is here, okay? So to fix that, the easiest thing to do is to actually make it impassable. Because impassable doesn't mean that you can't ever walk through it. All it means is when you place this tile down, it's going to automatically or not automatically delete the lines. So in this case, we want the lines to be deleted when we place it. So they get deleted. But then what you can do is you can press F3 to manually draw from this line, and now it will go underneath. Because you're actually connecting these floor tiles together, okay? If I do that with the other tile, so if I delete these, this one, and I put this one back in and lower it down, and just delete that line. If I try and draw this back manually, it still goes over the top. Why? Because the floor and the wall are still the same object. So it's always going to go to the height of the highest part of that tile. But because in the other example, I'm going to have to do it again. We had the floor tile first as a separate thing, and then we put the arch in at a height above it. And then when we draw the navigation line back, we're actually drawing the floors together. So because this tile is separate from this arch, that's where the line is going to go when we place it back. It's going to go on the floor rather than on the wall. Okay, so this is how you do walls and doors in grid mode games. Okay, so let's just quickly play the game and see the difference between the two. Okay, so here we are in game. So now if I walk up to the wall, now I can't go any further because there's no navigation. Now if we just bring the console down, and don't worry about all of this, I'm not expecting you to understand any of what I'm currently doing. This is just to show you something. But this just allows me to bring up the navigation lines in the game while I'm playing it, so I can show you something. Now, the reason I can't go any further is because there's no path to that wall. So you can refine the placement of these walls so that the lines, go closer to it before they get deleted. In fact, we might be able to do that already. Let's see if we can, we can actually make the lines much closer. That's a bit more like it. But now you can see that instead of going over the wall, the line in this case stops at the wall because it's impassable. And so now we can't get over it. And then when we get to this arch, instead of going over it, the path takes us through and under. Now, obviously, in this case, I clip through it because I'm taller than the arch, but nonetheless, I'm going through it, okay? It's important to note, and we'll talk a bit more about this in the navigation mode video, but it's important to note that navigation overrides everything. It overrides collision, all sorts of things. So you'll notice that even though I'm higher than this wall, I will walk through it. I will clip through the top of it because this green line is always going to override everything, okay? So if there's a green line through or over something, that's exactly where you're going to go, okay? So that's important to understand, okay? But there you go. So that's how to set up walls and doorways in RPG in a Box grid mode.